Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast. I'm your host, Robert Smith, along with my co-host, Adam Stellman. Today, we'll be reviewing a somewhat tragic loss to the Los Angeles Rams in Week 1.
Somewhat.
Adam, let's talk Seahawks.
I guess we have to. I mean, this is ostensibly a Seahawks podcast. Yeah, wow. That was, I don't know about you guys. First of all, let me apologize to everybody watching this because I don't know what's going on with my computer here. But my camera has decided that I'm going to be just bleach white. It's probably because I'm wearing black and I'm in a dark room. I don't know. But in any case, I apologize for anyone I'm blinding out there. But yeah, that wasn't what I thought we were going to see on Sunday. It was bad. I don't know. I don't know what else I could say. That was bad. That was just a bad showing. That is not how you want to start off a season after coming off an unexpected playoff run. And yeah, it was awful to watch.
I agree. In fact,
all three times I had to watch it.
Yes. Yeah, it's always nice when there's a win and you get a chance to go back and watch the film and take notes. Yeah, it's really not that great when it's such a bad loss like this. And you're just going through the pain of watching the game again, even though you know the outcome. For me, my initial thoughts after this, I'm going to relate this to a story. So we're going to say that this game was an adventure book, right? And it is the tale of a hero who's out starting this adventure, this quest, forms a party, goes off to go get the quest, slay the dragon, whatever your story may be. So this adventurer is adventuring until about chapter 6. And in chapter 6, the hero dies tragically. And the rest of the party are stuck in the tavern. And that's where they sit for the next 100 pages. And in the end, the villain wins. And there's no point to the second half of the book. That's what this game was. No point to the second half.
Yeah, because I agree in that I don't think we learned anything from the second half that we didn't already know, and that we knew that tackle depth and offensive line depth in general was poor and going to be an issue if somebody went down. Certainly, if both of our starting tackles go down. We also knew that, or at least you've been harping on it, and I've agreed with you, but we've known since last year that this is not a good defensive scheme for getting to the quarterback. And now it doesn't look like it's a good defensive scheme for preventing passing yards. It looked like it might be okay to stop the run, but I'm going to put that up to more just a dynamic performance by Jarran Reed than anything else. Because that man's arms were on every single ball carrier as they tried to come through that line. Unfortunately, his arms weren't long enough to reach the edges when they decided to go with a sweep, but that's another story. So yeah, the second half I didn't learn anything in the second half that I didn't already know.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, if your nose tackle is making the play on a sweep, you probably got some other problems. So
clearly,
I don't expect Jarran Reed to make that tackle.
No, me neither. I just said it's too bad his arms weren't long enough to get there.
Yes.
Because otherwise he was touching every. Yeah, he did. I don't know who this guy is. This is not the Jarran Reed that I remember, and not even the Jarran Reed that I could vaguely remember watching play in Green Bay last year. So I love it. I'm glad that he's one pleasant surprise to come out of this game is Jarran Reed can play nose tackle. Who knew?
Yeah, definitely a pleasant surprise for me. I had concerns about him at nose. It looked great. So let's keep that up. That was awesome. I can't say the same for the rest of the line, but they actually graded pretty well. I know, Adam, you have a stat about pass rush win rate, but overall, I think there was no pressure on Stafford and no inside pressure. He had lanes to step up and throw in.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, the quick game was hurting us on defense all around. There were a lot of problems. This coaching staff should not sleep Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
No, you know what else this coaching staff should do, at least on the offensive side, is get in the damn booth. Pardon my French for those at home. But there was a press conference going into this game where Pete Carroll said him and Waldron had discussed it, and they thought that he should try calling this game from the booth because it's a better perspective, in Pete's words, and you can see the whole field. And yet, I watched the game, and Coach Waldron was there on the sideline like he always is, with no one around him, just him in his own little world calling his little game. That again, you always say, it looks like the Madden kid calling plays. Apparently, he's got like these two, it's like the devil and the angel on your shoulder, except for the angel's dead. He's taking a nap or he's gone. I don't know where he went, and it's just the Madden kid on his left shoulder, just telling him pass the ball, pass the ball.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
We're gonna get more to that later, but man,
I believe I sent a tweet out from our, I can't remember if it's my personal account or from the podcast account, where I said, I wonder if something to the effect of Waldron needs to call the game in the booth where he can see the field like a real offensive coordinator. He's not a head coach. Get off the sideline, right? He's not a position coach or a quality control guy, because those are the guys that get back coaches.
Yeah, what's the point of him being on the sideline? Exactly. I really need him to answer this for me. What do you gain from being on the sideline?
You get to celebrate with people. Like, he wants to be in the action. He's a coordinator. His job is to be in the booth where he can see the field.
Yeah, to coordinate. Yeah.
To coordinate the action on the field. Yes, exactly. So we had a return, a good positive note. I mean, this is going to be a generally negative podcast. I'm sorry, but if you watched that game, you knew we were probably going to have a little bit of salt coming into this game. But Bobby Wagner, this is his first official game back in the Pacific Northwest, back where he belongs, where he should have never left. And I was relishing in the fact that we saw a lot of vintage Bobby Wagner out on the field. Shout out to the 12s.
Yeah.
Great standing ovation. They welcomed him like they should have, right? Just like we gave him a great ovation when he came into town as a member of the Rams last year. They also welcomed him back this year. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. He played great. Quick stat line here. I have him for 81 defensive snaps, which is insane because our defense was on the field the entire game, basically. Yeah. He had 9 solo tackles, 19 total tackles, which led the NFL in tackles, and 1 tackle for loss. He was flying around, doing a great job.
Yeah, look, I think everyone's kind of been looping a little bit on his pass coverage skills. Obviously, Bobby, I mean, he's getting older. I don't expect him to be as fast, as dynamic in pass coverage as he used to be. It's not like guys were getting chunk yards behind him. I mean, he was getting the tackles. No, he wasn't there intercepting and deflecting passes. And yeah, there were quite a few completions in his area in zone. But the one person I didn't have an issue with tackling was Bobby. I knew if Bobby was near the guy, he was going down. And he did. And look, I don't think, I mean, the Seahawks know who Bobby Wagner is. He shouldn't be put in a pass coverage position when we have 2 middle linebackers. When there's 2 middle linebackers in there, Bobby needs to be the guy watching the line, possibly if as a stuttered blitz package if necessary. The other guy should be the one dropping in pass coverage. The other 2 guys that we have playing that position are much younger than Bobby, and ostensibly should be able to handle a tight end or a slot receiver over the middle like that, or at least make them think twice about catching that ball over the middle.
No, I agree, and I'm going to give a quick shout out to Costco for not sponsoring, but making sure I got plenty of paper products in the background of my video. So for those of you on YouTube, you got to see that little blooper.
I just assumed that you were trying to make yourself a little taller in the seat there.
Yeah. And for those of you in the podcast world, I let you in on the secret. All right. So moving on, we posed a few questions coming into this show. Let's just start out with the hard one, right? Who's to blame? Is this a coaching problem? Was this a preparation problem and an adjustment problem during the game? Or is this on the players? Were there some execution issues, some efficiency issues on the field? Let's go through our 5 keys to success and figure out, at least from our view, where we can put this.
Yeah. Sure. So, I mean, number one was neutralize Aaron Donald, which I think is always going to be the number one key to success when you're facing a Rams defense. And for the most part, I think we did a pretty good job. There wasn't a ton of pressure on Geno Smith up the middle. The pressures that we saw on him were mostly going to be coming from the edge. Yes, Aaron Donald collapsed the pocket a few times. That's what Aaron Donald does. You're not going to be able to stop him 100%. But I think when we were calling run plays up the middle, we always went away from him, and those tended to be pretty successful run plays. We can talk about that in a sec when we get into some of our other keys to success. But yeah, I think especially in the first half, Geno saw two pressures the entire time, and neither of them were from Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
So from that first half, he did great.
Oh, for sure. If you look, Aaron Donald has averaged 1 sack per game that he's played the Seahawks. And he got half a sack this game. So,
win.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's great. That's exactly, or a win, right? That's what you expect. It wasn't Aaron Donald that beat us. The problem is, he had 4 tackles. Not that big a deal. He had that half a sack. He didn't take over the game. What I saw, the offense was playing a little scared.
In the second half, especially, yes. And I think, and we can get into why that is. Part of that obviously is because both of our tackles went down in that second half. Our 2 starting tackles went down. Yeah, I would be a little apprehensive too if I was along that offensive line. But what you have to do in that case is make adjustments to where you can negate as much as possible the deficiencies of your backup tackles, something that our offensive coordinator did not do. We're skipping ahead a little bit because we're actually going into our third key to success was, does Shane Waldron have a plan? No.
Well, let's just go through it. Yeah. No.
No. If he does, I need to know. If he has a plan, I need to know what it is other than pass it, run the ball until I can get away with just passing the rest of the game. Because going back to what was our second key to success, which was establish the run, we were doing great in that first half. It was like run, pass half the time. A couple runs, pass to get that first down, run. And Kenneth Walker was great. Kenneth Walker didn't have a single negative carry, I should say, the entire game. He was averaging over 5 yards a carry. And that didn't change even when we got into the second half and lost both of our tackles. But for some reason, we still thought, you know what? Our last 3 possessions, let's just pass. Let's not even think about running. And that really hurt us. Really hurt us.
Offensive balance is probably Shane Waldron's biggest weakness. And it's a weakness that scares me as someone who loves this team and wants to live and breathe Seahawks football. To touch on the running game, it was 5.3 yards per carry that Walker had. Charbonnet, 3.7. Dallas had 2 yards per carry, but Dallas did a lot more in the game that was not running the football. He looked really good in punt return. He looked really good in kickoff return. He blocked pretty well out of the backfield. He does a whole lot more than carry the rock. So that 2 yards doesn't bother me from DJ Dallas. Charbonnet had 3 carries, average 3.7. I'll take that from a rookie on his first game.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, Charbonnet's not the kind of guy. I mean, Charbonnet's not the same kind of animal as Kenneth Walker. This is a guy that's going to need to build up ahead of steam. And when the offensive line isn't getting any push, it's going to be really hard for him to get yards after contact. And I think he had 3 carries. Kind of hard to judge a guy off 3 carries. Exactly. And again, that's because we went away from the running game in the second half. Our tackles went down. We had one run the entire second half. One run. And guess what? That run went for over 5 yards.
Which actually leads us into that third key to success that Adam touched on earlier about Shane Waldron and his game plan. I'm going to expand on that and say his game plan and his ability to adjust. Because we had Jake Curran at right tackle. We had Stone Forsythe at left tackle. Stone Forsythe is a plus pass blocker, and he is a negative run blocker. And Jake Curran is the exact opposite. I don't want him protecting the quarterback in pass at all, but he can go out there and blow people up in the run game. So imagine how effective those runs would have been, because Aaron Donald lines up on the left side of the offense.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part. I mean, they move him around, but in this game, he's primarily lining up on the left side of the offense. So you have a plus run blocker who is filling in, coming in because your right tackle got injured. And you could have put Will Dissly next to him, who is one of the better blocking tight ends in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Why were we not running to the right side? Why weren't we using elements of power? Why weren't we utilizing the strengths of the players on the field? That's the problem I have with Shane Waldron, is he wants to play the game Shane Waldron's way and not the way that it should be. Because when you coach, you have to take all factors into consideration. And that's really something that I don't see in him. You mentioned the Madden kid. And I said it jokingly last year, and it came up a couple times. This is not going to be pretty. We all know I'm never going to be on Shane Waldron's Christmas card list. The first half was okay. There was a perception of a balanced offense. We did all right. There were some miscues, but it was the first game back, and the starters don't play in preseason. This is basically a preseason game for the starters. It's just a preseason game that actually counts. The second half was abysmal. There were high school offensive coordinators who would have called a more balanced play selection in the second half. Our defense was getting killed because our offense couldn't move the ball. Now, DK Metcalf is to blame for one of those 3 and outs because we had a 3rd and 2 and he had a 15-yard taunting penalty or personal foul, whatever the actual call was.
It was the taunting penalty. They didn't see the personal foul. Nobody saw him kill poor Ahkello Witherspoon and throw him to the ground, which is another thing that I love DK Metcalf, but sometimes the man drives me crazy. He keeps talking about how he wants to be a leader for this team and how he's, stepping up and he's more mature. Well, show it then. If you're more mature, be more mature. Because if you watch that game, that's a rookie DK Metcalf. John at the refs, John at the sidelines, committing personal fouls, which luckily he didn't get called on when he thinks no one's looking. We know that under Pete Carroll, the Seahawks team has a slow start. It's been the case for over a decade now. Offense always looks a little sluggish coming out. And so there was no surprises for me in the first half when we were settling for field goals as opposed to touchdowns when we were getting in the red zone. Wasn't a surprise. But the offense was still on time. I mean, we were still making plays. We were still progressing down the field. And again, that's because we were doing a lot of stuff. There was a lot of pre-snap motion. We were moving our tight ends around in the backfield. We were showing multiple running backs in the backfield at the same time. At one point, we had all 3 of DJ Dallas, Zach Charbonnet, and Kenneth Walker back there. And guess what? That run went for over 5 yards. In the second half, now we've been talking about how bad it was in the second half. We only ran 12 plays in the second half. That's all we had. We were only on the field long enough to run 12 plays. And that was 3 plays at a time, 4 times. So I can understand that we didn't get a chance to get into a rhythm. But out of those 12 plays, only one of them was a run. And that was the only one that netted us positive yards. That run went for over 5 yards. And our total net gain for the second half was 3 yards. That means the 11 pass plays that we called in the second half went for a grand total of -2 yards. I mean, let that sink in. That's not a professional offense. It's not.
No, and so it was 3 yards at the point that the broadcast team put the graphic up. I think they actually ended with 10 or 12 yards in the second half when it was all said and done. But still,
11 pass plays for 5 yards still isn't that great.
Yeah, I'm gonna expand on the Madden kid just a little bit more because this game was so bad. This was the worst half of football, the second half of this game, in Seahawks franchise history.
Yeah.
And it's because Shane Waldron not only was listening to the Madden kid on his shoulder, but he embodied that Madden kid, but he embodied it as the middle schooler who's never played Madden before, who just picked up a controller and is now button mashing on every single play, but then on every single play, audibles to 4 verts. That's basically the type of play caller that Shane Waldron is. I don't know what's going on. I understand he was a passing game coordinator with the Rams. He was a tight ends coach. He was a quarterbacks coach. He has a lot of offensive pedigree. I mean, he's been coaching since 2005. He was a graduate assistant. So he has the resume. I don't know where he forgot that you need to have a balanced offense, because somehow in there, he forgot to put running plays on his call sheet.
Not just him. When did Pete Carroll forget that? Because I can't believe Pete Carroll's letting him get away with calling 11 pass plays in a row. I really can't. Because I can't remember another offensive coordinator we've had where Pete would have let that slide. I mean, I can't. How many press conferences do you have where he says, "I'm going to be"? We've talked about it. We got to run more. We got to run more. I don't know if I've seen that in the Shane Waldron era where Pete's gone. We got to run more. He certainly didn't have a problem saying it with Darrell Bevell. So why is he biting his lip with Shane Waldron? It's a little confounding.
And this is not the case. I have zero evidence. I'm not going to say that this is the case. But this is the type of thing that you see in business when there's some nepotism going on. When the more qualified person is there, but they hire the boss's son to come in and do a job he's not qualified for.
So you're claiming that Jody Allen and Shane Waldron are an item? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I'm not going to go there. What I'm saying is that's what it feels like. It feels like maybe they said, oh, somebody might be an heir apparent. And so we've been trying to make somebody look good. There's something going on behind the scenes, because what we see on the field would have got people fired last year and in this game. So we need more than Pete Carroll just to be like, oh, I'm the head coach, it's on me. Yeah, it's on you, but you need to do something with your coaching staff, because both your coordinators are not good.
Yeah, we've been not to keep harping on Shane Waldron. I think he deserves it, but we've been we've got another guy to talk about. Because our defense didn't play much better in the second half. They did okay in the first half. I mean, the first one long drive by the Rams, scoring drive, but they didn't score again in the first half. They just had one score, 7 points. That's it. And they had 3 other drives in the first half. They didn't score on any of those. Now, I'm not going to say that's completely on our defense being good, because I think the Rams were still trying to figure themselves out in that first half, just as any offensive would when it's their first game. That was Matt Stafford's first, live throws in over a year. So, but yeah, getting back to our keys to success, the last 2 were defensive. Number 4 was prove we can stop the run. I think we did a pretty good job with that. Now, obviously, there are some exceptions, but in between the 20s, we were knocking them back. Every time they try to run up the middle, like we said before, Jaron Reed, arm around that guy, he wasn't going anywhere. Now, when they tried to run outside, as long as they weren't running at Boye and Mafe, they made a pretty decent. And actually, I shouldn't say that. Uchenna Nwosu acquitted himself pretty good in the run game too. The problem was when they got in the red zone. All of a sudden, they're in the red zone, and we apparently forget how to tackle. And it's not just the defensive line. I mean, Trey Brown had a pretty big whiff himself.
Kobe Bryant missed. And
Kobe Bryant. Look, Kobe Bryant. I'm going to defend him because he's my guy. Everybody knows I love Kobe. He's learning a new position. He's being put in positions where I don't think he's necessarily I don't think he's being put in the best situation. Also, he is not a sideline to sideline guy. This is a guy who excelled in college. Not was good. This guy excelled in college as an outside press man corner. And we're asking him to learn a whole new thing now. And yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve. The other thing is he's not as quick as those guys that are going to be running in the slot. I think when he gets his hand on guys, they're going down, but most of the time he's a step behind. I really wished we would give him a chance at outside corner, because I think that's where he belongs. Not that he didn't, show us some highlights at safety during the preseason and did pretty good last year at nickel corner, but that's not his natural position. And if we want this guy to get better, I think we need to be putting him in a position to succeed. I think the best place for him to succeed is at outside corner. And he certainly couldn't have done any worse than Trey Brown and Mike Jackson did this game, because those guys weren't tackling anybody or defending any passes. I think they threw it Tariq Woolen 3 times, and he allowed 1 catch in those 3 times, and it was for like 5 yards. But the rest of the time, they were going after Trey Brown and Mike Jackson, and they were winning going after Trey Brown and Mike Jackson, which takes us into our last key to success, which was, do we have any clarity in the secondary? I don't know about you, but like I said, I didn't learn anything in the second half. I don't think I have any idea what this team wants to do in the secondary. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, Artie Burns had something like 16, 18, something like that, defensive snaps, because they were just trying to figure out, they were just throwing corners over there to see who could be effective.
Yeah, at one point they moved Julian Love from safety to outside corner, which I get he's a chess piece and that's something they want to be able to do. But it wasn't like they threw him out there for one play because they thought, oh, this is a mismatch if we have him out there. They were like, no one else is covering these guys. Let's throw Julian Love out there. He was out there, I think, for most of the last quarter of the game, playing cornerback.
Yeah. And to go back and touch on the run defense for a minute, they held them to less than 100 yards, but 3 touchdowns given up on the run. So that's where Adam pointed out, between the 20s, we were good until they got in the red zone. And then we were still okay, but we let them have the ultimate prize of the touchdown. With the secondary, they just need to figure it out. We have the talent on this team. They're playing these really soft zones. Remember the days back in the Legion of Boom days, everybody knew we were playing cover 3. They were playing zone. But you had these big guys. You had Sherman, Browner, Maxwell, right? Big corners who were able to go up, punch somebody in the face legally. You can't actually hands to the face, but punch somebody in the mouth off the line, right? Huge jam, disrupt the timing, and then they bail back into their zone. Why can't we see some of this? Why don't
Especially
we see
with
physicality? Yeah, why don't we see the physicality on defense?
Yeah. Look, last year when we lost Jamal Adams, Ryan Neal was able to step into that role and acquit himself really well. Not just really well, very well. Hashtag we miss you, Ryan Neal. But again, it looked like they had a plan. Oh, Jamal Adams goes out. That's okay. We know we got a guy that can do some of the same stuff, and we can move that around. I think they're just waiting for Jamal Adams, which is that's not a good coaching philosophy. Let's not have a plan until we have a fully healthy secondary. Chances are we're never going to have a fully healthy secondary. When Jamal Adams comes back, odds are one of those other guys is not going to be ready to go, because that's how the NFL works. Injuries are a thing. So, yeah, I mean, that was the thing, is because preseason I had no idea. It was very vanilla. They didn't look like they were scheming anything up in the secondary. And now it looks like it wasn't that they were holding stuff back. It's that they literally just didn't have anything schemed up in the secondary.
Soft Fangio zones. That's what they had schemed up. You know what else they had schemed? They had, I'm going to call this, there's a picture. I mean, shout out to, I believe it's at Disley TD on Twitter, who posted.
It is Disley TD.
Right?
Great follow, by the way.
And this was a picture from the All-22. You can tell there's no angle issues, right? You have straight
shot along
lined up with center, so you know where the camera's at. You can tell by utilizing yard lines to give you distance. Darrell Taylor was in a 3-point stance, 8 to 9 yards wide of the offensive tackle. Like, he's out there with the slot receiver, but he's in a 3-point stance.
He's past the slot receiver. Yeah. He's outside of the slot receiver.
And I made a comment on it, and then somebody responded. They were like, oh, that's wide 9. Go watch the Eagles. They do it. I'm like, no. Wide 9 is the outside shoulder of the second tight end. right? I'm going to call this because apparently Daryl Taylor wanted to go visit the fans. So we're going to call this a wide 12 technique. He's out there visiting the fans on the field.
Oh, that's a shame that we're using that for this that name for this this defensive scheme, because that's a great name and a terrible scheme.
There's a lot that needs to be cleaned up. Jarran Reed played great, but Jarran Reed can't do it all himself. He was beating his blocker and then getting picked up by a second guy afterwards. They were just stepping around him.
Which will happen if you only have 2 down linemen rushing. So,
well, on that same play, they had one down lineman, I believe it was Jarran Reed, who was over the tackle, and they had the other down lineman on the outside shoulder of the guard, so in the B gap. What? Why are there 7 yards between every one of our defensive linemen? There is no defensive scheme on earth, and nobody's coming up with anything new in football. So don't let anybody tell you there's innovators out there. We talk about the Fangio defense. The Fangio defense is just a rehash of what guys were doing 20 years ago.
Yeah,
one of them is Jim Morris Sr.
Yeah. It's a Tampa 2 variation. I mean, that's, I mean, going back to when Pete Carroll first got here, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's just Tampa 2." It was just Tampa 2, basically. He was running either thirds or quarters with either 1 or 2 high safeties, and that was it. And the only other difference is he would take a guy who would be looked at body type wise and skill wise as a 3-4 outside linebacker and put him up on the line to get that length and speed advantage. But
you would play him.
Oh yeah,
properly.
Oh yeah, he would still be, even if he was wide 9, he's still going to be within 2 or 3 yards of the guy next to him, because that's how you collapse the pocket. You have to get those offensive linemen to shrink the pocket with you, and how you do that is you corral them. But if you're out 5 yards wide, then it just takes one guy to just kind of mirror you and block. He doesn't have to go as far as you. So yeah, it's a mess. The biggest or the ultimate takeaway from this is our defense is a mess. Offense is a mess too, but offense is at least a mess where we know where the pieces go. So we can put them back we should be able to put them back in the drawer pretty quickly. The defense is like a junk drawer. Everything's just thrown in there and no one has any idea where these pieces or things go.
The defense is that Lego catch-all bin that everybody had as a kid, right? It's not the set that you get that has all the pieces. The offense is the set, and they just lost the instructions on how to put it together. Yeah. The defense is just that one Tupperware just full of random blocks. That's what the defense is right now.
That's a way to shoot for that Lego sponsorship, by the way. That was
Hey,
good.
I'm trying. Lego, if you want to sponsor us, we're open to it. We are not sponsored by anybody, so feel free. But we saw it a lot last year. Where were the multiple tight end sets on offense? Right? Players were playing scared. Gino was scared. It's look at we've never seen from him.
Yeah, there's a meme floating out there of poor Geno Smith's eyes bugging out of his head as Aaron Donald's bearing down at him because he didn't have anybody blocking for him during the second half. Yeah, look, I can excuse the defense a little bit. I can give them a little bit of a break because they were out there almost the entire game. Literally, our defense was out there twice as long as our offense.
So here's a question.
Go ahead.
Were the injuries to blame for this loss? Do we want to put it on the injuries?
I mean, they didn't help, but considering how poorly we made second half adjustments and how well the Rams did, I'm going to say we would have lost if everybody had been healthy that entire game. Because it looked like Shane Waldron still wanted to go away from everything that was working to a vanilla 3 to 4 wide receiver set where everybody just either runs a post or an out route. which in Madden's great. In Madden's great. You get all these throwing windows. It works really well. Not so well in the actual NFL.
No, in the NFL, you're expected to make adjustments, right? Teams have coaches specifically watching what's going on so they can tell their respective coordinator and head coach and all that stuff, oh, they're running primarily these type of plays. Maybe we need to start running some more zone beaters because they're only playing zone. So there are people watching for it. It's not like you get to just take your game plan and paste it on top of the game and that's how everything's going to work. You have to make adjustments.
Those people
so I'm going to say,
were up in the booth and they had to get all the way down on the field so Shane Waldron could see the printouts that they gave him of, hey, look, this is what we ran last play.
There's a time delay because there's an intern running the notes from the booth down to the field because Shane Waldron isn't where he's supposed to be.
I mean, I assume that's what's going on because someone's got to get him the readouts of the play that was just run. And by the time he gets down there, the next play is already happening. So get in the booth, Shane. Get in the booth. Just try it. See how you like it. It might be fun.
Yeah, being a real coach might actually be fun for you.
So let me ask you this, Robbie. I mean, we've identified just all the countless issues, or at least a lot of the issues from this game. How do we fix this?
Ooh, how do we fix this? Well, I'm going to tell you what I would do because I'm not on the coaching staff, right? Yeah. This is what I would do. Just short and sweet. First thing is, I'm going to tighten up that defensive line, right? No more wide 12. I don't need defensive linemen playing with slot receivers. We're going to play a little more press. I don't care if it's press, bail out to your zone, right? Press bail, that's fine. I'm a press man guy.
Isn't that what the kick step move is for? The Seahawks' famous kick step move. Isn't that what that's about?
I believe so. Yeah. I forget how many actual steps it was, but yeah. I mean, they specifically taught that technique and it won them a Super Bowl and got them to another one. So definitely make some changes on that defense. We're going to play a little more gap sound on that defensive line. Because right now, I think the defensive coaching staff forgot that there were even gaps on the offensive line. So they're just leaving all of them open in hopes that maybe a defender who's pass rushing is going to be there when it's a rush down. I'm not sure what their thought process is.
That's actually pretty brilliant because if there's nothing but gaps, then there are no gaps.
There you go. They just walk down the field.
Yeah.
So we're going to tighten it up. Maybe bring one of those outside linebackers a little closer, shift that line over, end up in a 4-3 like they should be. Another thing
you could just say, I think what you really want to say is just go back to the 4-3 base defense. But I get why you're not saying that. But
well, that's because a mid-season adjustment like that is very difficult. Of course, you could counter they're not playing the 3-4 well at all. So it doesn't matter if you take a week to go back to the 4-3.
Yeah. Also, it's week one. I'm already not to spoiler alert. I'm expecting a loss to the Lions only because of how well they played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl championship or the Super Bowl champs home opener this year. I'm expecting a loss to the Lions. So that's fine. If we're going to take that day or that week to implement the 4-3 and take our lumps from switching schemes, I'm all about it. Let's do it. Let's get it fixed by week 3.
Sure. I'm fine with that. How about we get it fixed by after the bye week? I mean, come out first game after the bye week and we line up in a 4-3. My heart will grow 3 sizes because right now I am the Grinch when it comes to Seahawks football. Adam, how would you fix this?
The defense, I'm you know me, I'm not a defensive guy. I the biggest thing for me is I would stop letting every wide receiver have free releases along the line, which goes back to maybe playing a little bit of press coverage. It doesn't have to be complete press. I'm not saying like every corner has to be right up there on the line with the receiver, but give them a little bump. Maybe like try and redirect their routes just a little bit so that Matthew Stafford, who is an excellent quarterback, and when you let him throw on time, he's going to kill you. So maybe, kind of disrupt that timing a little bit. And yeah, the other thing I would do is Figure out who you want your starters to be in the secondary. Let them play until they want to come off the field. Stop trying to. You're outthinking yourself. If it's Jamal Adams and Stephon and Quandre Diggs in the back, then that's who it should be. Okay, I know we got Julian Love and we're paying him some money. That's fine. We can have a few packages where he's in there. Big dime, I think, makes a lot of sense. But other than that, let's get back to what this defense does really well. Let's get Quandre back there, roam in the zone. Let's have Jamal in a position where he can rush on a delayed blitz, or he can stay in coverage and do the thing that we tried to ask Bobby Wagner to do this whole game, which is cover those guys over the middle. And as far as our corners go, give Kobe a try. Just give him a try on outside. That's all I'm asking. If Devin Witherspoon's not ready to go next week, don't put Trey Brown out there. Don't put Mike Jackson out there. Put Kobe out there. Let Kobe try playing the position that he's played really, really well for like 5 years of his life. That's how I'd fix the defense. Let's talk about this offense.
Oh, offensively. Balance. All they need to do is use their tight ends.
You mean do what they did in the first half, the whole game?
Yeah, funny how that works. That's how it tracked the entire season last year, too. Let's use our tight ends until it works, and then we'll stop doing it. And it's not other teams adjusting. If you go watch, sure, they may pay a little more attention, but that doesn't mean you give up on it. It means now you use them as a decoy. But when you take them off the field, they can't be decoys. Will Dissly, I've been on record about saying I'm not the biggest fan of PFF grades, but they give us an unbiased judge for everybody. Will Dissly had an 86 grade for this game. He played 16 snaps. 16 snaps. Which is absurd, especially when you realize we had injuries on the offensive line and he could have been there to help as a tight end in the second half. Absurd. So if I were to fix the offense, I would encourage Shane Waldron to run a balanced offense, balanced play calls. It doesn't have to be 50-50. It doesn't even have to be 45-55. Give me 60-40. I'll be happy. So balanced offense and force him to utilize tight ends on every single play.
Yeah, I agree. My way of fixing this offense would be never, ever, ever run a single play where we don't have at least one tight end on the field. There's no reason to. Because even if we want if we want to go 5 wide, every single one of those tight ends is better than our fifth receiver. Every single one of those tight ends is better than our fifth receiver. So I don't know why we have any plays where there's not at least one tight end out there. It doesn't make sense. We have not just a great, we have an exceptional group of tight ends. All these guys do a lot of stuff very, very well. Noah Fant is a monster after the catch. That guy can get the ball, turn up field, make guys miss, big enough to throw in some stiff arms too. He didn't receive a single target this game. Not one. Noah Fant was never looked at. Why are we not? We're paying this guy $15 million a year. Let's use him. When Dissly and Parkinson are out there together, it's always a positive play. Go back and watch. Parkinson and Dissly on the field, positive play. Whether that's a seam route by Dissly, an out route by Parkinson, or they're just there to clear the path for K9 to get 20 yards. So I think that would be, look, if we're down our tackles, the best way you can help out our backup tackles is by having an extra guy in there to block. You know who that extra guy is? Will Dissly and Colby Parkinson.
I agree. Now let's start to wrap this up. Our 25 to 30 minute reaction.
We went over a little bit. Sorry.
Is now 20 minutes over. But I want to end on a positive note. It was really hard.
You have one. Oh, good. I'd love to hear this.
It was really hard to find one this week. But first of all, positive note for the podcast. Seahawks Hall of Famer Walter Jones retweeted us right before the game. And so that was just cool. So shout out to Walter Jones for retweeting the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast.
Thank you, Big Walt.
Thank you, Big Walt. But also, Michael Dixon is in midseason Pro Bowl form. He is the only reason the Rams didn't score 45 points this game. He had 4 punts, and mind you, he did not punt in the first half at all. So his first punt was in the second half. 4 punts. He averaged 59 yards per punt. So thank you, Michael Dixon, for being the 12th member of the defense, because you were able to pin him back.
Now, if we can, no offense to Artie Burns, but now if we can just get a gunner that's going to down that ball on the 1 yard line instead of knocking it into the end zone, I'll be super happy. I actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I have a positive note too. This isn't really a positive. This is more like an anecdote, if you will. Opening day for the Seahawks this year was September 11th. Hashtag never forget. The last time that the Seahawks opened the season on September 11th was 2005. If anybody remembers how 2005 ended, great. Let's not go there just yet. Let's talk about how 2005 started. The Seahawks lost horribly. They lost by 3 scores, I believe, to Tennessee, which is not. Tennessee now would be kind of bad to lose by 3 scores. Tennessee back then, that was awful. And I think we lost 2 of our next 3 games. We did not look good. However, we then went on to win 10 out of our next 10 games, and I think 11 out of our next 12 games. And then we went to the Super Bowl, where the refs decided that we didn't deserve a win because we're an expansion franchise, and the Steelers had just drafted a quarterback that they really wanted to, make seem like the hero that he isn't. The point is, week 1 is just week 1. It's one game. And yes, that was a rough game. And yes, I'm going to be bitter about it until we play again, and maybe even after. But it's just one game. We've got a whole season ahead of us. 16 more games to come. We can fix this. Me and Robbie just gave several ways to do it. I don't know if the Seahawks are going to listen to this podcast. Probably not. Or implement any of those changes. Hopefully they will implement some of them, because the product that they put on the field this Sunday can't be put out on the field again. That's not Seahawks football, and it's not what these fans deserve. So give the 12s what they want, and that's a team that's competitive every game.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm looking forward to a turnaround. I hope we see progress in Detroit this week. This isn't our preview show. I'm not going to give a prediction. It will be very difficult to win in Detroit against that team. But I want to see progress. I want to see progress from the players, that they're more comfortable within the scheme and within the situation. I want to see progress in their coaches, that they've learned from their plethora of mistakes in week 1. And I know that this fan base will rally around the team. So moving on, all I have to do is say thank you for listening to the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast. This was our week 1 recap. We'll catch you again. And like always, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.